Hi, my name's Jason Pellish, also known as the Click Whisperer and the president of Massive Impressions Online Marketing. AI content generation has a troubling and powerful ability to create misinformation. Plain old search crawlers, who are artificial intelligence, take the data from pages and put it into their databases during a crawl. Ranking is when these pages are algorithmically ordered, resulting in some sort of output when someone searches for key terms that's ordered by quality. And the thing that's gauging the quality is the artificial intelligence of the search crawler. In the case where AI is leveraged for content creation, the same thing happens. The pages that exist get crawled. But algorithms, instead of ranking the page, use the content to rephrase it into new, unique text for the purpose of publishing a web page. That, let's say in this example, the intent is to get that web page ranked. Now, the problem comes in with a situation that's very much like the telephone game. And in the telephone game, where someone is given a message and passes it along, where everyone who's involved can't hear the message from the start, the message changes from person to person slightly. And the whole point of the exercise is to demonstrate, in a funny way, how the accuracy of the message erodes. AI content generators have a sort of similar problem. Their job is to rephrase content to pass along the message, and often that results in some sort of inaccuracy being created in the content that's being generated. Simple content is easier to rephrase with AI. If it's well written and it's around easy subject matter to understand, it's pretty easy for the AI to represent the content without loss of accuracy. Let's take this simple sentence. A lot of people like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Well, AI could take that and regenerate that into a statement that says peanut butter sandwiches are popular with jelly sandwiches. Now, that's not necessarily the case. The AI misunderstood, made an innocent enough inaccuracy that people might not necessarily catch. Complex content is more difficult to rephrase with AI accurately. Poorly written content around difficult to explain subject matter is hard for AI to rephrase automatically alone without loss of accuracy. Let's take this statement. Experts agree nitroglycerin is ideal to store in stationary containers. Now, nitroglycerin is a liquid that if you shake it, there's a potential for it to explode. So that's a important statement. They want to make sure people understand not to put it in containers that get jostled around. Now, AI may innocently read this and rephrase it to keep your papers and pens in nitroglycerin, say experts. That's bad advice, obviously. It's inaccurate. I'd call that an inaccuracy. The SEO reality is that crawlers and AI have a hard time of scoring things for how true they are. That's where human moderators need to come in, or at least people who understand today's version of what's supposed to be true. They can score content according to other criteria for quality a little bit easier algorithmically, but the absolute truth of something is not what AI, or at least search crawlers, have the time or energy to devote towards finding. Quantity of facts on a page, in other words, the volume of words or volume of phrases, how long the page is a positive factor in getting a page ranked. Obviously, you can't repeat the same stuff over and over, and the content needs to be unique. It can't be the same content that you published elsewhere on other pages, and it can't be content exactly the same as what other people are publishing. SEO reality is that, including inaccurate statements, absent human moderation, an average is only going to benefit a page's ranking. And there's going to be little risk to hurting that ranking if inaccurate statements are included. Now, if it's just an additional fact, it's not a contradictory statement, they're probably going to do better at including it. For example, if somebody said that people enjoy pickles on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, if there's nothing contradicting it out there on the web, why wouldn't an AI be encouraged to include it? Sure, they would be. So let's look at a specific example in automatic content creation, a little scenario, a little illustration of how it could go bad. It's a pretty extreme example, but it's meant to be extreme, so it illustrates the problem. Here you have the content that exists around a subject, and we have 2 pages that are written so as to be read very simply by a majority of people, and 2 pages that are written for experts or written by experts that get a little bit deeper and are a little bit harder to understand. The search engine crawler would have access to these pages, of course. It would crawl them and assign ranks to the pages so that when someone searches for a subject, that's the order that they'd get those pages back in. An AI automatic content creator comes on the scene. Let's call him Adam, and he publishes a new page, and the new page only has 1 inaccuracy. Competitors leverage AI content creation simultaneously. 2 new AI come on the scene, Ben and Clyde, and when they come on the scene, they have access to not just the human written pages that Adam had access to, but they also have access to Adam's content because Adam was successful at getting it ranked in this example. And they also see Adam's inaccuracy. So, Ben is going to crawl these existing pages. He's also going to crawl Adam's, and so is Clyde. Clyde is going to crawl these pages and see Adam's inaccuracy. And when Ben goes to create his page, he's highly successful. He's really good at it, and unfortunately, he introduces his own inaccuracy as well as copying Ben's. And Clyde, maybe not so successful, maybe not such an authoritative domain, also gets a page published and ranked and introduces Clyde's inaccuracy. So in this next generation, generation 3 here, we have 3 new AI coming on the scene, and each are tasked with creating unique content. We got Don, Edward, and Frank. And the first 2 are owned by commercial competitors. They go through and they copy the content that exists, which includes content from Adam, content from Ben, content from Clyde, and they repeat the facts, each creating new, likely inaccurate facts as well. So Frank is a little different. Frank is leveraged by a professor whose page is already ranked, who's one of these authoritative sources that already exist, but this professor has to update the content, keep it fresh, and publish new papers all the time around it. So this time around, the professor uses AI to help generate the content. And when the AI goes out and researches the topic and looks for all the ranked authoritative sources, comes back with some inaccuracies that already exist and links to those inaccuracies, strong references, and tries to create an inaccuracy of its own. But the professor's smart enough and spots it and doesn't let Frank create its own inaccuracy. But the professor is encouraged to take note of and sort of have some credence in the new inaccurate facts that exist. And I'll tell you why, because here you have these pages that were created by Don and Edward and Adam and Ben and Clyde, and they all got ranked right alongside the professors. If the professor is in that club, the club must have some credibility, and here's all these other people in it. And lo and behold, Here you've got Clyde and Ben and Adam, and they're all presenting new facts that the professor simply didn't have access to previously, and they're all newer pages. And there's a great temptation in just thinking that perhaps they're more informed, they have a fresher source of information than the professor. So the professor may be tempted to repeat some of those facts, even though they aren't true, especially if they help validate some of the professor's biases and narratives that they have to gain from. So with every following generation, the errors add up. The more important the subject is, the more profitable the gain is in getting ranked, the more competition is likely to leverage AI for content creation. So here you see this generation 4, you've got this new AI, George, coming on the scene. And when George attempts to get his page ranked, he includes all the existing misinformation that was published before him, coming up with a big long page. And he's only successful at getting ranked in position 9, but he does a good job. So why is this a problem? Well, this is a problem in situations where consensus defines the truth. And if you're familiar with how blockchain works, where the majority of people who have a version of a file determine whether or not that's the most credible or most authoritative version of that file, that's the one that's used in order to identify whether or not the blockchain has been tampered with. This problem may create inaccuracies in future technologies, in future applications where consensus defines the truth. In particular, for AI who's responsible for going out and researching a topic, they may be misled simply because there's consensus on an inaccuracy. So you might say, well, let's come up with ways to avoid this problem. And one obvious knee-jerk method would be to mark up content that's been generated by AI as having been authored by that AI. We have an author tag in HTML. So why don't we use it, and why don't we, insist that if it's generated by an AI, best practice is to, make sure that it's identified separate than people. Or conversely, if it is generated by AI and there's a human that's involved that goes through and edits it and wants to give it some credibility, you could qualify the content with an editor tag, say, for example, where it may be in question because it's generated by AI. But there's a problem with that and that relies on the publisher or the developer to mark this content up. And if people are using this technique to mislead the search engine robots and to make them think that this is unique content that exists around a subject, and have the search engine robots give credit to those pages and consider them unique and credible, then the publishers are going to be persuaded or motivated not to include any of this markup in there, because it might identify it as being something that the search engine robots should avoid or take special precautions around or spend extra time on and consider potentially to not be credible. So let's be honest. This technique, when it's used to get pages ranked, is essentially a black hat technique. It's used to be manipulative, and it doesn't really add any new information or information in a new and useful way to the web. So we really can't expect marketers or anybody to adhere to any standard that we put upon the developers or we put upon the publishers. The onus to correct this problem really sits on search engineers, the developers who create search engines. I really believe strongly that it will improve the quality of results that are given to search engine users if search engineers devise methods for identifying AI created content if they penalize the use of it in rank, if they openly discourage against the use of AI created content in their directions that they give to people who are trying to get rank on search engines. And finally, they should avoid discriminating against legitimate AI created content. For example, dashboards and scientific reporting, weather, prediction, finance, etc. AI has an important role in creating content that everybody should be able to find very easily on search engines. It's a big challenge. I want to know what you think about it. Please give me your comments below, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, if there's anything you have to add, or if you just want to collaborate with me on the next level of investigating this topic, please let me know. Once again, my name is Jason Pellish, aka the Click Whisperer, president of Massive Impressions Online Marketing. Reach out, contact me. It'd be a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.